Okay, perfect. So
we have a few new attendees, so welcome everyone. We just started the recording, so we will also share the recording afterwards.
So, Marisol, today we want to speak, and also the attendees, we want to speak about how digitalization helps you in surviving through the shortage period, through the allocation that we face nowadays. I brought with me together my colleague Marisol, and let us, in the very beginning, start introducing ourselves. I'd like to start with myself.
Sorry, Dirk, are you sharing your screen, the presentation?
Oh yes, I'm not yet.
Yeah,
right. Let's share this right now. So that's the topic for today, and let me see. This is me and myself. My name is Dirk, and I'm responsible for the sales of CalcuQuote in Europe. 2 years at CalcuQuote, meanwhile, but I've almost 10 years of experience in the electronic supply chain. I'm based in Frankfurt, and if you don't see me myself working, there's a chance that you find me also on a bike. And I have brought with me Marisol, and
I've been
Marisol, could you
I've
introduce yourself?
I've been an account manager with CalcuQuote for almost a year and a half. I'm based in Madrid, Spain. I have more than 10 years of experience in customer relationship along different software companies, and back in the days of travel industry as well, and been working with the electronics pretty much for the last year and a half.
Thank you. So, and what I like to speak about with you today, first of all, we are starting in the effects of the shortage crisis, and all what we take a look on is a little bit on a macro level. We take a look on how it's affecting companies, how it's affecting employees in our industry. Then we speak about the benefits of digitalization. We see how automation possibilities, or which automation possibilities are used by EMS companies often today. And then we speak about the automated supply chain of the future, and also how that can become a reality for you even nowadays, and how that helps you also during the shortage crisis. These are the topics that I'd like to speak about. We will have some questions from Marisol in between. We have 3 polls prepared, and we will quickly then speak about that. And of course, if you have any questions, I'm also able to answer them after the presentation. I've planned about 40 minutes for the presentation, and let's see, when you have questions, don't hesitate to ask them. Down there, you have a Q&A functionality, and feel free to ask them. So this is going to be the agenda for today, and I'd like to speak now about how the shortage crisis affects EMS companies. EMS companies, especially because they're in a middle position between OEMs and distributors. Many OEMs don't have electronic production anymore, or they never used to have, which of course means that they're at this side not necessarily the full insight into the supply chain, and understanding of electronics production itself is really existing. And that brings EMS especially into a situation where they need to communicate a lot about the current situation, but where they also have, where they're also in a middle position that makes the business relatively challenging nowadays. And it simply starts with longer lead times. We face longer lead times. We see from our from the data of EMS companies that from an ordinary BOM, only 70% of the components can be found nowadays on stock. Often you come into a situation where the other 30% is hardly to get. It has eternal lead times that you never thought about. A long time you was used to having double-digit lead times. Nowadays, even 3-digit lead times are not uncommon for many parts. With this, with longer lead times, you have less production, simply because your orders are stretching up. That's not something you can produce nowadays, but you're discussing and you need to phase out, you need to push out all the productions for orders. And that leads to a lower machine utilization, which brings, of course, then, which brings you into a situation where your machines cannot be used as before, simply because you don't have the goods and you was not able to purchase the goods in time. And that leads to another situation. You are keeping stock for the components that you need for the production, and you can't produce, which brings you into the situation that you are going to buy components that you don't use at this moment, which involves actually a higher capital. So you need more capital to make the production running, simply because you're waiting on the missing components. In case you have 95% of bill of material already in your warehouse, you're missing the 5%. It takes too much time, and it takes your capital for the 95%. And there's another thing. You, of course, think about, okay, what can I do if I have higher costs? I have lower machine utilization, higher capital is required. If I should now increase the prices because everyone does. And of course, yes, that's a strategy. That's, of course, the usual strategy that everyone would follow. But you still have limited room for that. Limited room, first of all, because you have a close relationship to your OEM, and you don't want to damage it by really high increases. That often means that you're not increasing as much as you would need, but you're probably only going a little bit lower, especially if you have long-running contracts or if you already have contracts on a current production. So there is a limited room. You cannot increase it as much as you should need to stay on the same profitability level. And then there's another thing. You are working with your OEMs. You are having weekly conversations with them. It takes longer and longer. It takes longer until you can produce. Your OEM is getting nervous. He is checking out the market. He wants to find things on his own. And you are not sure if the production batch that you was already purchased, if it's going to go into a production, especially when it's going to be pushed out for half a year longer. And these are increased risks that you as an EMS company are facing. So these are the effects that we, from our understanding of the EMS markets, EMS company face today. And we have that understanding from conversations with customers, of course, and also with distributors, how the situation is, and also our experience from earlier allocations. So that's the basic macro situation of EMS companies in general. But how are employees doing that? Employees in the EMS industry. And we see here on the individual level that there's much more communication needed. Why is more communication needed? Because there's less stock at your preferred distributor. So it needs more communication with the OEM. And you need to search out for components somewhere else. Probably you find it. There's a likelihood that you can't find it. And that needs more communication with your OEMs. It needs more communication internally. And then we speak also about approvals and alternative approvals, more communication with the distributor. And all of that, more communication means, of course, more workload of the individual employee, which, of course, means at the very end, more exhausted employees. Because also when there was not allocation, you used to be filled with your agenda used to be filled. And all of that, if you have exhausted employees, this can result, or that usually results in the lower quality of your work, more mistakes, and that's simply an effect of all of the market situation. And some employees even say that this industry, the situation is not really well for them, and some even say then goodbye to our industry. And these are the effects of the shortage crisis. And I like to analyze, I'd like to find ways now how software, how digitalization can help you here to minimize the effects. It's not that we can find components that are not existing on the world, but we can make, and digitalization can make your life easier. And let's take first a look on what's possible to digitalize. And we see that actually repetitive steps that you're doing in your purchasing, that you're doing in your quoting, those can be digitalized. And if you think about what your employees do, often these are repeated steps. These are things you usually do very frequently. It's starting with looking up MPNs in web shops. It goes through checking order statuses, matching MPNs to IPNs. And if I speak about checking order statuses, you even have the situation that you nowadays saw, that you more often ask your distributor, how is the actual situation of an order, even if you have an order acknowledgement, because that's your last component. That's the very crucial thing that you need to have for your production. And that means it means that you're doing phone calls, you're trying to get components in, and all of these things. And digitalization helps you in something else. It's accuracy in the very end. It's data organization, because information is often shared either on an analog or maybe also in a digital way. And it is required, or what's important for you is that you structure this information accordingly. And what we think how digitalization should work, it should work that it helps you in organizing the data. And that starts with distributed quotes. 5 pages PDFs of distributed quotes where you manually need to need to copy prices and part numbers. These things should be avoided. And if you think about approval emails or the visibility of your status of your components, of your deliveries, this is something where we see that digitalization makes a lot of sense, and it makes your employees' life easier. And there's probably one crucial question that you should ask yourself, and that you should ask also employees of yours, or your colleagues. How many emails do they receive every day? And if I might mean email, I mean really each email item, because you can have emails with quotes from your distributors. You're getting part approvals from your colleagues, from your customers. You're getting bills of materials from your customers, order confirmations. And if you have this line by line on the bill of material, which has probably 100 components, that's a lot of information that's coming in by email. And it's not special that employees in our industry are receiving more than 100 emails on a daily level. And of course, that's a very time-taking and oppressed working environment that they're working. And what are then the benefits? I just described how we see the situation is nowadays. And the benefits of digitalization means actually it's increasing your speed. Also the accuracy. And that's because of the data organization. And it's simply because you are having more time for the manual steps. And it helps you in market transparency, high customer satisfaction, simply because you're able to quote quicker, you're able to find a missing component quicker. And in the very end, the result is that the employee workload is going to be reduced. And at the same time, you have more transparency over your process, simply because you have now metrics that help you in checking the situation of your quotes and checking the situation of your orders. And altogether, that leads down to the ultimate business value. It's more revenue and, of course, also more profit. And now let's take a look a little bit on how digitalization evolved within our industry. Although I have 10 years of experience only, I still remember things like getting phone calls from EMS companies about certain components, using our telephone alphabets in speaking about component Alpha Bravo Charlie, and writing then on notepads prices down, getting orders on the phone, transferring them on Excel files into an ERP system. And if you think about these steps, all of them were manual, and all of them were actually mostly analog. If you think about phone calls, that's the part where a lot of errors are coming in. And then you have handwritten notes, and of course you have your handwritten notes and you don't really know what you wrote down simply because you can't read it anymore. Of course, then everyone started with Excel files, noting this down, and many people then, of course, sent out then quotes on inquiries by email. Then you send out the emails. If you send this out to a mail distributor that was large enough, you're getting then for each inquiry 10, 15 quotations. If you get some, and all of this together was and is a manual, probably only semi-automatic process that's existing. And done then, and in part, let's say 5 years ago, the ideas of web shops came up, were used much more frequently. Actually, if you think about web shops, that's something that came up, let's say 2015, 2016, and became a bit bigger during the last allocation, let's say during the capacitor allocation. But if you compare that timeline-wise with other industries, we are actually lagging quite behind. We're lagging quite behind because Amazon was in the world in 2008, 2009, already frequently used. Actually, even earlier, you was able to buy books online. Amazon was much earlier in the world. And if you think when the first web shop came into the electronics market, you see we're actually quite behind in doing digitalization. And let's just take a look now on the communication forms and which communication happens in the supply chain. And I was now describing and showing this in this supply chain. I'm starting here with manufacturers. I have here distributors. Here is the EMS industry. Most likely this is you, unless you're coming from an OEM. And here we have the OEM. And this is only a stylized form. You will have also steps in between that are existing. There's also communication between OEM manufacturers, distributors, OEMs, and also along the whole supply chain. But most of the communication is going to be done between an OEM, and that these are then Excel files like bills of materials, emails, phone calls that are happening. And you have also communication between EMS and distributors, and also Excel, emails, phone calls, web shops. Between distributors and manufacturers, you often had a higher degree of automation already earlier, especially when we speak about EDI, which is a format for data exchange. If you have a very, very structured database, then that works well. It's not necessarily the mean for the EMS industry. And here I'd like to discuss now which things could be digitalized in this supply chain, which things are actually already existing, and where you can start working with if you want next week. So, but we now have a first poll. Marisol.
Yeah, before we jump into the next topic, we want to have a little bit of understanding on how you are tackling these challenges. So we are gonna see a question on the screen right now. We want to understand if you currently have a lead generation strategy, just to see what you will be more interested in learning and what things we should highlight about one of our products. So people have started to reply. We'll wait a few more seconds. Not sure if you can hear the music now.
Actually, we can't.
Okay.
But
I think we're ready to finish with this one.
okay, so that's a mixed answer, I see.
Yeah.
Some have, some don't have.
Exactly.
Yeah, let's take a look what's possible here.
Yeah.
And
We have another one to see. 1 second. So the next question we want to understand from your experience or how you're handling this, if you think your customers would appreciate a quicker quoting or a quicker reply on their project quotes. So I think this is going to be an easy answer.
Yeah, I thought that this was anonymous. Yes.
Yeah.
So, good.
Yeah.
So far, no surprise here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Marisol, thank you. Thanks a lot. Let us take a look what's possible nowadays. And probably these things are also new for you. Some might know them already, but let us take a look what is possible and where we see also the future. So is my screen now shared? Do you see poll 1, Marisol?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you should do. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Then start now. So communication, EMS, OEM, that's actually most of the communication or a large degree of the communication that you do in your daily job. It's a communication about bills of materials. It's communication about vendor approvals, part approvals, and of course, delivery dates. And when you get a bill of material, quotes are expected, of course, for the parts. So these are usually the information, the things that you speak about with your OEMs or that OEMs speak with EMS companies. And we see that all of this are repetitive steps, and we also see and also developed solutions that make your life easier here. And let me start here with CalcuQuote. And I'm not sure if you know this already. Some of you might know this. If you have, we saw in the past that some EMS companies, especially if they were doing rapid prototyping, that they were interested in having web forms. So distributors, so OEMs were able to upload bills of materials. And you find that elsewhere in the industry. Most likely, or there's a high likelihood that your PCB manufacturer has something similar. He has a web form, he has a setup information. So you speak about how many layers a PCB has, what are usually dimensions. Probably you can upload a Gerber file to have a web shop feel, and that you can actually even get an instant quotation. And that's the idea behind CalcuQuote. You want to present yourself to your customer as a company that is able to give you 24 hours of quotation, 7 days a week. And especially if you see and you want to have these quotations done probably semi-manual, because you want to have take another look on that, but you can even have that automatic for very small quotations. And to make the small production easier, because you don't want that your employees are spending so much time on relatively small productions. If you have more automation there, your employees might have more time for the things that are bring in the money, where the components are missing, where nowadays really the fires are in the bills of materials, where you need to extinguish the problems that are happening there. And that's something that you can implement on websites. Fully configurable with your brand style. It helps you to do a strategic customer acquisition, because of course you can go now to developers and say, okay, take a look. you're waiting elsewhere for a couple of days to get a quotation. Here you can get a quotation within a day or within a very short time frame. And we can do that through automation, which means we can actually give a quote within 10 minutes or even less, and this automatically without any interaction. And you as EMS, you see then also what are the projects that your customers have. And that's something we can use as an active lead generation tool. So you actively think about how you can get more business into your company. That could be a way for you. And it provides you also with bomb scrubbing functionalities, and it utilizes your warehouse and supplier data. So it's actually using the functionalities that also your other software and other databases, and what the API connections to the distributors have. Okay, and if you want to take a quick look here, you can see you can bring it with your logo into your website. You can adjust it, and you're able to offer your customers then some extra information, how to assemble, and can upload then bills of materials. And that's now the front, and that's what your customer can see. Can see then information on the components, designators, quantities, and all of these things. So, Marisol, that was a quick one.
Yes.
Now we have another two questions.
Yes, correct.
And a second question, sorry.
Okay.
Also two, right?
First question that you should start seeing your screen. We want to understand how you currently use your internal inventory while quoting. If you use it at, well, the same time, or if you are using your ERP to go back and forth between Excel spreadsheets, if you're using a calculation system, or if you are a QuoteCQ user, we want to know that, of course. We'll give you a few seconds, but I think we have a few more answers to go. We have some very powerful functionalities that help with this, so we just want to understand how you're managing this at the moment. Okay. We have, I believe you're looking at the results, right, Dirk? You can see them. So, can you hear me?
I can see them, but you can't hear me. So
now
I switch on. Okay. Thank you, Marisol. I saw them. Okay. And indeed, we have also nice solutions to coordinate information from your ERP system into other software solutions. Because that's actually what quoting needs to, you need to get all of the information somehow.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the connections done, then of course you speak about manual work, but that's exactly what we want to prevent. Marisol.
And just a second question, to know, to have a better understanding, what's the turn time on replying back to your customers, if it is within the same day or between 1 to 3 or up to a week or even more? This is, of course, in relation to what Dirk was saying. Of course, if you have to go back and forth with internal information or going through other approvals or revisions, then it's probably going to take you more time because you need to do more manual work. So I think we have pretty much all answers.
And of course, nowadays, what we need to say, it takes sometimes longer because you need to speak with your distributor, and it's still, you will still have components that you don't find. But what's important and what can be helpful for you is that you're able to automate where automation is possible, and that you're not working around some resistors that take you too much time to find right part numbers for a resistor and these things.
Yeah.
Because there are nowadays tasks in your daily work that require a lot of time. Yeah.
And looks like, yeah, most of the audience is well working for more than a week on the quotations. So now we can go into the topics we have prepared.
Okay, so Marisol, thank you. My screen is shared. I'm going now to the next one. I would like to speak now about actually the cure part, what we consider as the cure of the information that you're getting in, getting out. You're getting information from your OEM, like the bill of material. I just showed you that there are solutions that help you in getting a nice bill of material and making automation possible. Although if you want to say you want to have more control over that, even that is possible. And then you're getting information from your distributors. And then we speak about the management of the bill of material. We speak about labor estimation, material costing, overhead costs, and a management of margins and markups. You can even manage them by industry or by customer, and metrics and reporting. And that's a very important thing, especially for larger companies, because you want to have a control. You want to see actually how you're doing and where you can optimize within your company. And in the very end, you have a nice quote log. You can see what are you doing currently, and where at this moment quotations are late or where quotations are in time, and how the overall situation is. So, and let's dive once into that. Here we have something like the coordination with the OEM. Approvals, you can get here approvals from your customers, and how that's something that software and CalcuQuote provides. You can make it, you can get the approvals through a web form, which helps you in having the information. It's not that you now have an Excel file, you need to communicate about that Excel file, or you need to do phone calls. No, you're getting actively the response of your OEM about approvals. And also the communication here. That's just an example of a system-generated quotation. And we see that it's often still used that you have a Word file, you're copying information from your ERP system into a Word file. Probably you do that really manually. And if you do that really manually, you're mixing up numbers, or you're mixing up other things that influence later your business. And that's especially something that you can prevent if you have automated quoting, if you're directly getting the data into a PDF file without needing to manipulating a Word document. And yeah, and also if you want to automatically communicate and quote, you can see here how you can directly generate or get orders from your customers based on a bill of material that you calculated. And these are nice things that help you in your daily work, because it's simply something that you can do and have automatically. That's the standard that you have in other industries. And I spoke about Amazon half an hour earlier, that you have already for a while there, but where we are in the EMS world are lagging a little bit behind. Yeah, this is what I see here. And let us take also a look about the communication between EMS and distributors. And when we have communication here, we have communication about quotes, so component numbers, delivery times, prices. And you know that business, you're speaking with your distributor, or you're getting emails, quotes on PDF files, Excel files, a lot of different forms, a lot of things that you need to do manually. We all know copy and paste. Although sometimes you make up mistakes because you're mixing up cells in Excel files, you're mixing up prices. And then you speak also about product properties, data sheets, probably more likely your engineers, but that's still information that you need to get from somewhere. And not every data sheet is that easily accessible. And then, of course, delivery dates. Nowadays, as important as never before, probably. And getting this information here and managing the information that I want to speak about the next minutes. And first of all, automation, and some know the screen already here, can be done by getting prices and stock levels automatically from distributors. These are some of our integrated distributors. I think we have 2, 3 more, but it gives you an overview about most of the market for electronic components. You'll find the major distributors here. And it's possible through software solutions to use APIs and to get the data from all of the distributors together and to compare it automatically. That's what we do already, and it's going to be done in a relatively short time. And the good thing is it's not cache data. It is real-time data that you're getting with real-time stock. So it's the latest information you can have. And compared to other ways that EMS or other companies are working, like going to websites where you have aggregated data that are cached, it's simply more up-to-date stock information that you have here. And usually it takes only a couple of minutes. I think we calculated once somehow, we saw once that 500 lines can be done in about 10 minutes. And here, the partners that we have recently added Schuka, but now meanwhile we go into the manufacturer direction, because also manufacturer start digitalizing their business. And in case your distributor does not do digitalization so far, because you are now buying more with independent distribution, or you have one of the rare examples or some examples that don't use APIs anymore. For those that work a lot with independent distribution because they have to nowadays, we have a solution which is named BitCQ that helps you. And essentially, it's a web form where distributors are able to upload prices, where you're also able to use Excel files, import them as bills of materials into our system to digitalize, even though there's a manual process on the distributor, but to digitalize the EMS, the part of the work that you as an EMS have to do, because you're getting in the data automatically. And that helps you to collaborate with suppliers, also speak about alternate parts, manage franchised lines. And in the very end, you can also send out orders through this. And it's an easy to use interface to share and receive them bit sheets. And that helps you in allocation times, simply because nowadays you need to ask more people. And if you do so, not everyone has a web shop, and you can do that also through BitCQ. But of course, it's a more manual process at the distributor, which means you're not getting instantly prices. But the good thing, you have organized data. Good. Then we have the third part.
Yeah, this
Marisol.
is the last of the session. So we want to also get a sense of your purchasing process. So first question is, how long does it commonly take you to get the order confirmation from your suppliers? As some of you may already know, we also have some powerful tools and functionalities and systems to help through the purchasing. I think we have most of, yes, all the answers. So yes, it's similar within all the week or more than a week, which makes sense to what we already know about the current situation and how the industry is dealing with the shortages at the moment. And last question of the day is...
But what you see is actually a problem. You see, if it takes a bit more than a week, and some answered this, you don't really know if the stock is still there. You might know your distributor's employee who's doing your account management at the distributor, but they are not able to cope with the workload within one day. They need even more than a week. And that really brings you into a problem, because if stock is there and you don't get that confirmed and someone else is buying, that's a problem.
Which lead us to the second question. If you would like to send your PO instantly or immediately right after you see there is a stock and you have the confirmation from your customer, then if you would like to have a way to just place the order and just have that stock coming to your warehouse as soon as possible or within the lead times agreed. So I guess most of the people would like to have that option.
Okay.
So thank you for the insights, and now we can continue showing you about the purchasing tools that we have in place.
And that's now somehow where we speak about the future, or the present that can become a future for you. Did I mix that up? Well, okay. It's because so far, especially the communication and the API requests are often done by EMS companies already on a digital way. Be it using simple web search engines, and you know the usual names. You have something like Firechips, you have Octoparts, they are caching data, they're getting API information for stock. And even if you're working more traditionally, you're using usually these websites. Of course, probably you might have something developed on your own, which of course is only for one company, and the level of sophistication can't be that high as if you was building up a system for 250 EMS companies. But also that might be already digitalized. But what's usually not be done, and what's the future, and where we see that the industry is going to, it's going to automatic purchasing. So you have a purchasing solution that makes it possible that you can instantly place POs, and it links with your ERP system and with QuoteCQ, and it offers you strong supply chain monitoring. Imagine you are able to look up the delivery status of all of your components for a certain project. You can check which one is late, when you can schedule production. And these things are nowadays usually done on a manual level. You have your components placed, someone has to take a look when this production is possible. It takes a lot of manual work. It takes a lot of manual comparison. And that's what ShopSecure, that's where ShopSecure helps you. And we speak here about the material calculation. And so far, here usually software is already in place, or often a software in place, especially if you work with us as your software partner. Also here, material calculation through APIs. But what's now possible, and that can be done here on ShopSecure, but what's nowadays also possible, that you can work with manufacturers, that you're buying directly from manufacturers. And I give you 3 examples here. Rochester, they usually produce produce components that are usually elsewhere out of production. And some Texas Instruments, all of them provide web shops. There are a couple more, and we see even more are going to start with this. And this is probably a side effect of digitalization. So you as a potential customer can buy directly with the manufacturer without using the distributor. And there are more than 100 different manufacturers where you're buying components, materials from usually. And our goal is one day to really have a large number of these web shops connected and to motivate also manufacturers to have more APIs and API capabilities. And a very recent example here is that we integrate with Texas Instruments to get direct components, and in the future also to do purchasing. And let's take a look here, and that's what I wanted to show. This is an overview of our order management tool. So in ShopCQ, you can see here, and you can check here through the text to filter for certain projects. And you can see all of the components that you ordered. You can see the statuses. You can see tracking numbers once the distributor provides it, or quantities that are already been shipped. And that helps you, of course, in managing your purchases. So that's what I want to speak. We now have 50 minutes gone since the start. What I do and what we see and what I discussed about is how the initial digitalization changed the EMS world already. So let's say from a phone call to an Excel file, and how further software systems and are already there, software systems that drive automation way more. And in the very end, it's just a question of doing the step to get benefits from it. So these are the topics that I was addressing the last minutes. And I would like to thank you at this moment for your attention, for your answers. I hope it was clear for you, and also the points helped you in getting some ideas for your own business, in getting ideas about how you can further digitalize your business to make you and your employees a nicer, to give them a nicer work atmosphere, and to prevent the repetitive steps, to gain in the very end a higher competitiveness, and to get the digital information into your house and being able to quote quicker, getting more revenue. I'm here open for your questions in the next minutes. In case you don't have any at this moment, feel free to contact me also personally. My email address is dirk@calcuquote.com. Also, my colleagues are here. You'll find them on our website. So, Marisol, do we have any questions?
We didn't receive any questions, but as you said, they can message you, or some of the participants are also my customers, so they know me, and you can reach out to me if you have any questions, or if you like to see maybe an extended demo in one of the products that you're currently not using, or the functionalities. So we are also open to schedule private or individual sessions to something specific that you want to learn or understand more in depth. But if no more questions, I think we can wrap it up for today. Again, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today.